a penalty if you fail a drug test. But, you know, like I said, it happens, and hopefully some kids can learn from it, but just don't get caught.
I'm down to dunk.
And I'm down to dunk. I'm down to dunk.
This is J-Dub, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lindy Waters, and I'm down to dunk. I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Jay Will, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kenneth Williams, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk.
We say this is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
Cracklin Oat Bran?
Have you had Cracklin Oat Bran?
No.
No. Okay.
But it's healthy.
Are you a big Oat Bran guy?
I'm a big Oat Bran guy.
Okay.
I think I would switch it with Fruity Pebbles.
Okay, eat faster. Don't put as much in the bowl.
Do you have a gallon of milk I can also take home?
You don't have milk at home?
One cinnamon toast.
Okay.
Crunch. Yeah. Cereal is great. Yeah.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Al Baby Cakes, aka Al Kula Baby Cakes, and I'm joined, as always, on Wednesdays or Tuesday nights by Michele Berra. Michele, what's going on?
Yeah, this is a regular podcast. Me waking up at, I don't know, 5:45 and just...
Is that how
recording
early it
as
is
a
there?
song. Yeah, it's 6:10 right now.
Do you wake up early to read all those books behind you? You got so many books, so many pamphlets.
No, these are, I think, Laura's school books. She's a teacher, so most of those stuff are like textbooks. No, I usually run at this time, so it's okay. My voice is a little bit shaky. My mind is not ready for the day, but hey, let's go.
If you're wondering where Andrew is, he is not on his way, but he's close to being on his way to the draft in Brooklyn. And so he let me and Michele do our own podcast about the draft. And we've got scuttlebutt. We've got shooting statistics. We're going to talk about the green room invites. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. In fact, how nice of Mark Stein was it to he introduced some scuttlebutt. We won't get to it yet, but some scuttlebutt just before we started recording. How nice was that? So Michele, are you ready to jump in to the scuttlebutt?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I've done something. I'm hoping this is going to work. I'm going to share my screen so that if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, no big deal. It's going to sound the exact same. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the things that we're talking about. Now I'm going to say them out loud as well, but you know, it might be a little more interactive that way. So here we go. Starting off with, can you see that? Great.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're starting off with Jonathan Gavoni tweeted today that there have been 25 green room invites. Now, just because they invite these 25 guys doesn't mean that these 25 guys are going to be the first 25 picks, although they did happen to be the first 25 picks in ESPN's latest mock draft. Mm-hmm. A few things stuck out, which is why I wanted to bring this up. One, no Leonard Miller in the top 25, which I was a little surprised by. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me because, I'm not sold on him being a lottery pick. If everything breaks right with his shooting, he can be a great pick there. Like, he's an energetic guy. From all the intel that Sam Vecini and others got, he's a guy that really wants to learn and actually is able to. But the shooting is a big question, and the passing is not there. So again, to me, lottery was always a little bit too high for him. Not seeing the top 25 though, that seems a little bit weird to me.
And some of the other names that didn't make the invite list that people were like, about Bryce Sensabaugh, which some people really like him. He was not on the
terribly surprised.
I wasn't super surprised by that. I'm not a huge Sensabaugh fan, but Some people are very surprised by that. And then Max Lewis also not included on the list. Now, it seems like every year we get to this point of the Thunder's draft. We're looking at the invite list. We already have the guys that we think they're going to pick. If you had to go with someone, mostly probably towards the end of this list, that you could imagine them taking, that we haven't really talked about a lot this draft cycle, who do you think would be the most obvious pick?
The last name showed on your screen is I mean, we actually talked about Ryan Rupert at the beginning of our draft coverage.
Because back then, people were talking. In fact, I think Vicini might have had him in the lottery at some point.
Yeah. He was definitely in the lottery in Thunder range for, I would say, a good chunk of the year. He had good moments in the NBL. He is a Thundery player, not just because the friendship with 7'7" point guard Ousmane Dieng
keeps growing.
I made really. I should use Twitter better. But anyway, but also because you see like a 6'7" wing that can really defend at a high level, and he has been in a situation where offense was not the primary thing. I have my doubts on how that team actually runs offense. So there is potential there. But then it was kind of the forgotten thing. There were like shiny toys to play with, I think, in March and April. And he slided, not because of the on-court product or what he did, but just because other people were rising, like Bilal Koulibaly and guys like that. So I think that he is still a player that has some upside, and I still think that teams like the Thunder could be interested in
could potentially take.
Yeah. Again, it's rich to me at 12. It's very rich.
And the fact he was included on this makes me feel like something must be going on. I'm starting to get a little worried. We'll talk ourselves into him and everything, but if they just stay put at 12 and just drafted Rayon Rupert, it would be a little bit of a deflated balloon feeling for me.
Yeah, I was deflated with Ousmane Dieng last year, especially like hearing the number of picks. So far, I am still deflated.
There's always a chance you could be reinflated next year.
Yes,
big
there
summer.
is. To an extent. I don't have a number in front of me. I discussed it with Andrew on Monday. How many players, or maybe it was like not on the podcast and earlier or after, how many players have really like not bad, but just so rookie season and then so year two and actually become real contributors / starters?
Yeah.
There are players like that for sure. Is it likely? No. So having a subpar rookie season, it's not the greatest thing. We'll see next year. There are plenty of rookies that are just either great or terrible, and then this is not conducive to how they are the rest of their career. So year one is what it is. But for example, with Pokusevski, I struggle to see any career path that has a guy like that being a super good starter.
based on his rookie season?
No, based on his first 2-3 years in the league. So you have time after the rookie season to prove yourself. But it's not like an infinite amount of time. Isaiah Joe is a good example. Very bad rookie season, second season so, and he is starting to contribute at a role player level. That happens. So yeah.
And the other thing that is just now becoming a thing is we always used to talk for the last couple of years about how long of runways these guys were going to have.
Yeah.
Because there were minutes to go around, and it does feel like those runways may be shortening soon. I'm still waiting for, the Thunder waiving a guy after 2 years or something. Like it feels like just because of the number of picks they have, that will happen eventually, and it'll feel like a shock in the moment. But there's another part of me that feels like that's probably inevitable. Just with the amount of young guys they have on the roster, if they do want to bring over someone like Mitchich, for example, and they need a roster spot, it wouldn't shock me if they eventually waive someone after like 2 years or 3 years or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and we are thinking about the future treasure of draft assets that OKC has just in terms of drafting guys, which is probably the likeliest thing that they will do with those assets. I think that there will be consolidations trades and trades that just bring in veterans and stuff like that in the future. So maybe as early as 2024, they might draft one guy and use 2 picks on consolidating someone, or they will do trades that send away a guy like Trey Mann, 2 future first, and get someone in. So I can see trades like that where you don't necessarily see players moving away after 2-3 years because of roster crunches. Like they will not be cut, but they may be part of deals like Jeremy Lamb, for example. So I think that this will happen, especially if OKC is good enough next year. This will be surely a process that we'll see over the next few years.
Pretty cool how I can do that, huh?
That's awesome. This would be actually the most shocking result.
If they traded up to 5 and drafted Rayon Rupert. Yeah, that would shock me pretty good.
Yeah, that would be, hey, we are so rich with assets that we can do whatever we want. Say, okay, that's a nice use of resources, I guess.
So one thing you mentioned, a small little detail that I just wanted to focus on for a second. You mentioned the picks that were sent off for Ousmane Dieng, and one aspect of the recent Bradley Beal trade that I hadn't really thought about until I was listening to a Trill Bro Dudes podcast is that pick that we sent out for Ousmane Dieng, which is now owned by the New York Knicks, which was a Wizards pick, and that is protected for the next 3 years. And I wasn't thinking about that pick anymore because the Thunder don't own it, but you kind of have to think if they're going to go into a full rebuild, maybe the chances of that conveying have actually gone down because it's unlikely that they're going to be in the playoffs anytime soon. On the other hand, the chances that could convey as like a late lottery pick in 2026 may have gone up because I think in 2026 it's top 8 protected. And who knows what the Wizards will be at that point. But just something to think about because I hadn't been thinking about that pick in a while. Next. Yeah. Now, this happened, and shout out to Thunder Focus, at Thunder Focus on Twitter. Always got all the scoops, and I can just go to his timeline and look at them. Okay. Mark Stein reported that Paul George, and as I'm reading this, now that I'm looking at it, I'm realizing, this is from Mark Stein. Okay. Mark Stein said, is it time to add Paul George's name to the conversation about who will be the next NBA star to relocate? Lillard's Trailblazers at number 3 in the draft and the star-searching Houston Rockets at number 4, sources say, have been identified as potential trade partners if the Clippers decide they indeed want to shake their roster up dramatically for the final season before the team moves to owner Steve Ballmer's sparkly new Intuit Dome in Inglewood, California for the 24-25 season. Lillard and George joined first, blah, blah, blah. But then he went on to say that like this is a real thing. Like the Clippers have been putting out feelers to at least gauge the trade interest in Paul George and what they could potentially get back for Paul George, which I think is pretty interesting. I mean, a lot of people were like kind of surprised on Twitter. I actually think it could make some sense, especially if we're talking about the number 3 or number 4 pick. Like if you could get that in a Paul George trade, and you feel like we just don't want to run this back again, it's probably going to be harder to get a higher value asset than this number 3 or number 4 pick, especially obviously if Scoot falls to number 3. Like to go into that new stadium with Scoot Henderson as like your main attraction, even if they're not like great by that point, I think that's like a decent outcome for all of this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's almost too rich for Paul George.
Oh, I completely agree. If the Blazers did this, I would not be super, as much as I love Paul George. I think he's a really good player. The injury concerns kind of going, I mean, I don't really count the broken leg because that was kind of a fluke thing, but going back to his OKC years relatively recently, and then through these Clippers years where he's dealt with injuries, and some of those, have been kind of freak accidents. Like the thing that happened this year when he landed on Dort's foot and just messed up his knee or whatever. That kind of stuff, you don't want to say he's like injury prone, but he does keep having injuries like this. And if they traded the number 3 pick, especially if Scoot is there, for Paul George, if I was a Blazers fan, I would feel a little underwhelmed. Even acknowledging how good Paul George is.
Well, PG probably is one of the best fits with Dame. I think that he is a better player than guys like Mikal Bridges or guys like that might be available today in terms of peak talent and like just size to put alongside Dame. I think that would be an awesome fit. But again, I mean, the fact that you don't have recent years where you actually provide 70 games of value, this is scary to me. Like, it's surely part of the conversation. Like, number 3 pick is someone that will likely give you, if everything goes well, 70, 80 games of real talent for the next 9 years. You use that to draft a guy that may have a couple of good years, 4 years, with like 50 games per year. Like it's a shaky proposition, even if it's 60. Like I would be scared. For the Clippers, it makes sense. I mean, reworking that and saying, okay, we just trade away Paul George. We find a way to use that trade to take in maybe Chris Paul. We run it back. We retool around Kawhi, and we are ready, if Kawhi goes away, to just in the first season that we go in Inglewood being a terrible lottery team again. So that's actually a good way to position yourself in a weird way if you're like a Steve Ballmer team, because like if they trade away Paul George, even if they get the number 3 pick, is this a championship team? I would say no. If they use the number 3 pick to get another asset, okay, but who?
Yeah, and at that point, is it going to be? It's hard to imagine it would be someone better than Paul George, because if that were the case, then Portland would have just traded for that player.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing, Paul George is, for me, sneaky old. The fact that he is 33 already, he's going into what could be the final year of his deal, because he has $45 million next year, and then he has a player option for $48 million the following year. That's the other reason why. Actually, that's the main reason why I would freak out if I were a Blazers fan. Trading for anyone who is essentially on an expiring deal, if he chooses to opt out next summer, you obviously can't have any guarantees that he's going to sign a new deal. Yeah. And do you really want to sign a long-term deal with 34-year-old Paul George? So I think this is really interesting, but I just can't. This just came out, so I haven't really formulated the Paul George trade that makes sense in my head yet.
No, but sticking with the tweet, like number 4 is a different beast. Like there is a huge drop between the value of a Scoot, if he's there, or Brandon Miller. If it's Scoot, by the way, Brandon Miller has, I think, a little bit of a different value in my head than Scoot. Number 4, it's different. Like if Houston want to center a trade around PG, maybe getting in some way other things along the way, which I don't know right now what they can be. This is still rich to me, but it's different. It will be a tragedy on the court, but it's different. Like I can see Houston going that route. It's a mess, but it would be less surprising than the Clippers doing something like that, or the Blazers doing something like that. I would do it if I'm the Clippers. If I feel that this partnership is not going anywhere, and if Kawhi is salty about running it back as is.
And I wonder if you could get something extra. I'm assuming you would get something extra from Houston. Like, do you think it would be a just straight up 4 for PG trade? Because they could just absorb his contract.
Do you think that they need something else? I mean,
if
they
I was
can
the
get
Clippers,
something else, probably.
Yeah, I would try to get another young guy.
Yeah,
I'm really just wanting. I would like Houston to make this sort of a trade.
Yeah, me too. It would be actually terrible for them.
Yeah,
but 4 seems to me, it's still like a nice return for PG if they can get somehow a guy like, I don't know, Jabari Smith.
Yeah.
Sure, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, considering we're talking about an expiring contract of a 33-year-old very good player, we're talking about a number 3 or number 4 pick. That does sound like a pretty good return if they were able to pull that off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to include this real quick since we're talking about Paul George. So this is in Jake Fisher's article from Yahoo, and it's talking about Tyus Jones because the Grizzlies people are saying that Tyus Jones is out there on the trade market because he would like to be a starting point guard somewhere, which he could be for the first 25 games for the Grizzlies next season. But they're trying to help him find a starting spot in the league while Memphis has prioritized upgrading the team's wing depth. So it just made me think, could Memphis be a potential suitor for Paul George? Because we know that they offered the 4 picks for Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there have been rumors about them and OG Anunoby in the past.
Yeah.
Would this be a way for them to kind of do that at maybe a cheaper price? I know we were just talking about trading Paul George for the 3rd and 4th pick or 4th pick, but maybe the reality of the market for Paul George would actually make more sense for Memphis in terms of what they would have to give up.
He would fit there in terms of on-court product for sure. Probably Memphis has a lot of picks in the future that they can use. I don't know how many from the top of my head. Salary-wise, I know they would probably need to include someone like Steven Adams to make it work.
Yeah, probably.
Which I don't hate. The idea of having Chris Paul, Steven Adams, and Kawhi, they can all play 45 games and be happy for a season. But yeah, I mean, again, I struggle to see the value for the Clippers if it's not something like a fantastic offer. I mean, I think that Memphis can get you something nice, but not something that really help you, like being competitive or being ready to hit the reset button. Again, the number 3 or number 4 pick are picks that you say, okay, let's see if these guys are really good and we can have another run. And if nothing works, then we are really ready to hit the reset button and have like a couple of years where we might get the number 1 pick. And well, they actually can't because OKC owns everything.
Until 27.
Yeah.
That's what they got.
Yeah, which is also the weird thing. Like they can't really go that route in 24, 25. So I don't know. It's curious that they are trying to move Paul George. Maybe they can trade Paul George with the Heat. That is something that I can see, like getting Tyler Hero and maybe something in the future. A couple of they don't have many young guys to offer, but this is a way to retooling with young guys and see if it works better.
What do you think about? Because I've been thinking about Memphis's kind of team building over these last couple of years, because a lot of people have held them up as like a very good example of a way a small market should build. They've really focused on the draft, maybe to a fault last year when they brought in 4 rookies. And you start seeing this pattern now over these last couple summers of kind of shedding veterans, like good, still good veterans, whether it's like Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, who was still young at that point. Now Tyus Jones appears to be leaving. Dylan Brooks, who, I know Dylan Brooks, but still losing him. I mean, those are 4 pretty like quality vets that they've just lost over these last couple years. And haven't gotten a ton in return necessarily. I mean, we'll see what happens with Tyus Jones. I just think it's kind of interesting. Like they seem to be getting younger and younger and younger as they've made this ascent up the Western Conference. And like eventually some of these young guys have to hit. Like just have to turn into the value that Kyle Anderson was. I'm not talking about like an all-star player. Like some of these guys have to just turn into functional NBA role players. And I do wonder, especially with the Ja suspension next year, if we do see the Grizzlies pull back a little bit, because it feels like they had been making this steady ascent, and then everything got thrown off this season for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I'm very interested to see how next year goes, because it feels like they just keep getting younger.
Yeah, and this is to an extent what Denver did, but they did it more. They did it better. Like, in a small market, you really need to be aware of how much and when you pay your own guys.
Yeah,
And you need to see if there is value in the market or value in the draft to replace those guys. So I think that this strategy is something that you need to use, that OKC will need to use, and OKC will need to be super mindful about, like, what kind of contract can a guy, like, let's not talk about the main guys, because I mean Memphis took care of that, but just guys in the fringes like Pokuševski next year. What is the contract to give him? What is the contract that
what is answer, Mikey? What is the contract you personally would give?
Is there a contract right now? My answer would be: is there a contract that you probably like something? It's weird because OKC, like, it's unlikely. It almost never happens that OKC gives out a contract to a rookie, a guy on a rookie scale deal that is not something great. Like, they are likely to trade
like a
those
smaller
guys.
deal.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Kenrich qualifies for that. It was not like a standard rookie extension. Right. And he's an old rookie. So at some point, the process of getting younger or removing some draft picks to, like Malik Beasley is an example for Denver. There are many examples that I'm sure I'm not going to remember now, but they're cycling lean. There was a fly here. I see it.
I can see
it. So there is a process of shuffling guys that are not key players, which is healthy. Now, but you, as you mentioned, at some point you need to have the value of Kyle Anderson back, and you always have to think, like, what is the value of Kyle Anderson? I don't think that Kyle signed at a unreasonable market value. So
yeah,
it's those guys are keepers. If you can keep a Kyle Anderson kind of guy at a reasonable amount of money, just do it. Mainly because he's a guy that it's very easy to trade, especially with the salary going up in the next few years. So I would say that move was really perplexing. I know that you want to give Jake Laravia and Roddy and whatever minutes or to Zaire Williams, but yeah, you need to be damn sure that they can have a chance, and that Kyle is actually stopping you for exploring that chance, which I don't think it's true.
Yeah, he signed a 2-year, $18 million deal with the Timberwolves, which is actually, exactly what he made in his last 2 years in Memphis.
Yeah, it's super reasonable. And I think that Kyle is a player that, I mean, we have Kenrich, but like, it's those guys are helpful, and I mean, they are probably also stabilizing whatever rookies you're trying to develop. It's not guys that will handle, I don't know, 40 possessions a night and just say, okay, Jake Laravia, you can't touch the ball because it's mine. Like, it's not like that.
Also, I didn't highlight this next sentence, but small forward Dylan Brooks is expected to sign elsewhere in free agency, where Houston continues to be the destination most often mentioned for Brooks by league personnel. Great fit, don't you think? Love it.
Yeah, sure. I absolutely love it. They are shy, so they need a gunner like him.
And I feel like Ime is going to like him because, I mean, he really does go hard on the defensive end. So I could see him getting 30 minutes a night. Like, let's go.
It's surely, it's a player that plays defense and plays offense. Yes. I mean, yeah.
Okay, next. So this story was more about Portland, Dame, and the fact that they haven't really found a deal they've liked so far, and that they were preparing, right here, Portland is preparing what the team believes to be a compelling package for Miami to part with all defensive centerpiece Bam Adebayo. I am convinced that this is obviously made up, or not made up, but like, they know that Miami's not going to trade them Bam, but that they're doing their due diligence for Dame to show him, hey, we're trying. Like, we had already heard the reports about them trying to get Bridges. Mm-hmm. Those reports were like 3 weeks ago, and the reports were, the Nets aren't interested in Anthony Simons and the number 3 pick. And we knew that Dame really likes Bridges. And then Dame went on that podcast and said, Bam's my guy. Miami, I would love to play in Miami if I had to go somewhere else. So now they're putting this out there that they're, trying to get Bam.
Hey, Dame, well, trying to bring Miami to you now.
Yes. When I feel like what they're actually doing is recognizing the value of this pick the same way they did last year with Shaedon Sharp, and they're just going to draft whoever's there and deal with the fallout. But they're laying all this like groundwork so that, because it is so weird out here in Portland, where like when a lot of fans talk about Dame and the potential of him leaving, like no one really wants to be the person to break it up. No one really wants to be the reason why this ended. And you could imagine, and I talked about this on Twitter a few weeks ago, like you could imagine an alternate scenario where after Russ's MVP season, they don't make the Paul George trade. Like they just aren't able to get it done. And you could imagine a similar scenario where like the team is kind of stalling out. There's not like an obvious way for them to get better. Like that big star trade just never really happens. And there's enough fans of Russ in Oklahoma City who don't really want to see him leave. And the team like doesn't want to be, the ones to trade him away just randomly. Yeah. And I could imagine a similar scenario happening in Oklahoma City. Now, I think that Presti probably would have traded Russ at some point. Like it's obviously very different from Sam Presti, who's been here for over a decade, and Joe Cronin, who's only in his second year or whatever as a GM. But that's like my read on what this reporting is actually about. And then you get Brian Windhorst, who goes on ESPN, said Blazers have started to indicate they won't trade the number 3 pick. So Brian Windhorst talking about himself, checked in with Lillard's side of things, and I was told unequivocally no in reference to his statements at the exit interviews, which were basically like, I don't want to play with a bunch of 19-year-olds. He went to Dame's camp and said, has that changed at all? And he was told unequivocally no. Dame does not want a youth movement. He wants to play with vets. He wants the team to upgrade fast and get vet players that can help him now.
Yeah.
It's just hard to imagine a scenario where this isn't like, I feel like we can all see where this is headed unless there is some huge trade. And, we talked about Paul George. I think the more interesting one is Zion, and Sean Hyken, who we've had on Slam and Jam before. He, on Rose Garden Report tonight, said he thinks that the Zion idea of all these trade ideas that have been floated for the number 3 pick, he thinks that is the one that has the most legs. Is what he said.
If I was a Portland fan, I would be super scared of that happening.
Of trading for Zion?
Yeah.
But see, I think it's like a much easier sell. Like as opposed to trading for Siakam, who's on expiring, Giannobi on expiring, Jaylen Brown expiring, Paul George expiring. If you trade for a 22-year-old all-star, 22 years old.
Only 22?
Yes.
Is he about to turn 23? He seems like... but yeah, anyway.
Yes, he is on July 6th. Happy birthday, Zion. He is 22 and 349 days old.
Yeah.
If you trade him, he just completed the first year, I believe, of his max contract. So he has 4 years left. Like, at least you have some
roughly
security.
130 games.
I know. Yes. There are all those concerns. But
those are like big concerns to me. Like
they are big concerns, but when else would you be able to get a player that can play at the level that he played at age 22? Like it just doesn't happen. Like for all of Zion's faults in terms of like injuries and
good, it might happen. Sorry.
Maybe. But for all of his faults, like there's no doubts about him as a basketball player. Like people are kind of universally, yes, Zion's awesome. When he's playing basketball, he's awesome. And we have seen players like this. Joel Embiid did not play his first 2 seasons. He barely played in his 3rd season. And then eventually all the injury stuff just kind of worked itself out. And yes, he has still had injuries, but he's been able to play obviously at an MVP level this most recent season. So
yes,
I understand it would be a risk, but it's a risk I'd be much more willing to take than any of the other options that have been discussed. Even something like Brandon Ingram. who I believe is on
Interesting.
a longer deal. If the goal truly is to try to build a core that has any shot in hell of winning a championship with Dame, I think you have to go with the highest upside player available, and that definitely is Zion of all the options that have been mentioned.
Yeah, it's weird to me that I'm reading Dame does not want a youth movement, and yet you basically switch a 19-year-old guy for a 23-year-old guy with
That's 3 years difference,
Yeah.
Michele. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
that's not enough for me, but it's
And he's about to be 23. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's 4 years difference.
I would actually prefer to go the Ingram route.
Yeah.
Maybe getting in some additional like side player like Herb Jones' son, or like
Oh, you're getting greedy now. This is
no,
greedy.
it's the number 3 pick. To me, it's
You're already probably going to have to send them back like Simons, who doesn't really make a ton of sense next to CJ, because I mean that's kind of just creating like the small backcourt of Dame's past.
But back to Adebayo, because that to me is quite interesting. I don't think that Miami is Adebayo is not. You cannot touch him. I think that there is a price for a guy like that. He doesn't make Jimmy's life super duper easy in terms of basketball fit. He's a great defender. He's a guy that, I mean, can really, really play. Is he untouchable? I don't know. It depends on the return. So do you see that as an impossible trade to make?
Well, it's just right when that story came out, like every Heat reporter just immediately tweeted about it and was like, Miami would never do this. Bam is essentially untouchable for the Heat. And I sort of get it, because they are an older team. Like, can they really pivot to younger in a way that makes sense for them going forward? I mean, they gave Butler that big deal.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they need to go younger. But
that would be the consequence of doing this deal, because I'm assuming you're trading for the number 3 pick.
Yes.
And probably Simons.
Yes. Is there a way where I get that package and I reroute Simons somewhere and get a guy like Brook Lopez on my team? Just
a player of that caliber.
Yeah. Is that a worse team next year? It depends heavily on how Scoot Henderson is, or Brandon Miller. I'm not convinced that is a team that has in the next 3 years a worse title odds than a team like that with Bam. So to me, it's something that I would personally try to see. I think that one of the yes, I would actually think about it. I think that Miami has to think, okay, now that I'm punting on Bam and Jimmy together, I better have an option that is ready right now, because Jimmy will not be happy with Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson being what I get back from that trade. I need
to going to get traded to Portland.
Exactly. No, that is. But I think that one of the issues that Miami had in the playoffs, when it was heavily reliant or solely reliant on them having good nights in terms of shooting. Right. As soon as the shooting went off, they were not able to win any games against anybody, basically. And that to me is centered on 2 principles. Like, one, they don't have a good spacing on the court. And B, I mean, the 2-man game between Jimmy and Bam works well when there is a little bit of space on the court. So it's actually 1 point in 2 bullets. And so, yes, they have a great defense with these 2 on the court. And if you remove one of the 2, it becomes way more complicated to build a championship level defense. But you can unleash a better version of Jimmy if there is a little bit more space on the court. So to me, is unlikely, yes. would I say, oh, no. I mean, Jimmy and Butler are the foundation of a championship team right now, and we have to just try it another year as is. I don't know.
I do understand it from their fans' perspective because it's like they've just in the last 4 years they've been to 2 NBA finals and an Eastern Conference Finals. Like I could imagine as a Heat fan, you're like, we're right there. Like forget us being an 8 seed. Like we have been one of the most consistent playoff teams in the league over these last 4 years with these 2 guys. So what is the like impetus for breaking this up right now? So I understand that, even though I get what you're saying. We were talking about that you might be more interested in Brandon Ingram. I just wanted to bring up real quick this Will Guillory story from The Athletic about it's titled Zion Williamson probably, in parentheses, won't be dealt by Pelicans, but recent trade rumors say a lot. And it's a really interesting story. But one of the things he brought up was that on the day those rumors came out, Brandon Ingram was at Game 5, the finals, with Herb Jones and Willie Green, the head coach. And one of the things he talks about in this study is just about how everyone in that organization loves BI and like sees him right here. Young players who have praised his leadership in recent years. So that's one of the reasons why I think that would be more surprising. Some of the other details in this article surround Zion's weird relationship with like the head trainer for the Pelicans and how that has been an ongoing issue since his rookie year. And the Pelicans just made a change to swap out that person. So they're going to have a new trainer. But Will Guillory also talks about Teresa Witherspoon being let go and how she had been like a mentor to Zion through these first couple of years of his career. He basically was saying that they probably won't deal him, but he used the example of Ja. He said, even with everything that's going on with Ja, if there was a trade rumor out there about Ja being traded from Memphis, Memphis would immediately come out and shut that down. And you haven't really heard anything from New Orleans about shutting these rumors down. Like, if anything, they've only just continued to fester over these last couple of days. Today, there was like some denial, but it took a while for that to happen. And you're talking about a former number 1 pick, a guy who's been an all-star, like everything that I talked about earlier with him. It's just interesting. You feel like with any other team with their superstar, that would have been an immediate shutdown, which makes me think maybe it's possible.
Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. I'm not saying that I would not do it if I'm New Orleans. It's the receiving part that scares me. So I completely feel.
Oh, so you want it? You're saying, yeah, give me Scoot. Would you do that deal?
Pelicans are a team that, I mean, with Miami, I completely agree with what you were mentioning. Like we are, like what you're saying, like this like partnership works. Like they are in the finals. The Pelicans, as is, are constructed in a way where if Zion missed the time that is missing, they miss the spark to really be a team that wins at a high level. And if they see themselves as a team that, hey, we need more stability. We can't be always in this time of the year, like not having a team because we prepare to have a sort of team and we just don't. I can see them saying, okay, what's the best value we can get for Zion? Is this putting us anywhere? And I'm not saying that Simons and the number 3 pick are actually changing things, mainly because of how the roster is constructed today. But like, it's not something that would say, oh no, I just can't discuss it.
And I just put the Pelicans salary up on the screen because this is something a lot of people have been talking about. The fact that you have CJ with 3 years left, somewhere around 100 million. You have BI with 2 years left. Everything I just said, they're probably going to sign him to a huge deal coming up. He'll probably be making 50 million a year within the next couple of years. And then you have this Zion deal, which is somewhere around 36 to 40 million every year for the next 4 years. For a small market that hasn't made the playoffs, that is a big commitment. I shouldn't say hasn't made the playoffs. They did make the playoffs, but
they're not steadily in the playoff conversation, and they will pay Trey Murphy. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Trey Murphy as well. But they haven't been a team like they haven't made a noise necessarily. Like they had that very nice series against the Suns. And that was great. But
Mhm.
for how much they're paying for this core going forward, they're paying this core like it was like Memphis, where you're paying
Yeah.
like Ja, Bane, and Triple J, but you've seen that team have some moments in the playoffs already, win a
Yeah.
series at least. And so I would understand it from that perspective. It is just like that is a huge decision. And
Yeah.
some of the New Orleans writers have been writing about this, about how big of a moment that would be for the franchise, especially coming off of the Anthony Davis saga. Like to have another number 1 pick and then you trade him away within like a few years. That would be bad optics, whether it was the right move or not, and they would probably get killed for it regardless. However, if Scoot is awesome, might not matter. Okay, next. Scuttlebutt. We have so much scuttlebutt. Evan Sittery. He is a credentialed NBA reporter for hire, Forbes sports contributor. Okay. He posted this so that ESPN did some like draft show tonight, and Woj was on it. And he was pretty direct in what he said about what the Hornets are going to do in this draft. He said the Hornets are preparing to select Brandon Miller at number 2 overall. Miller impressed Michael Jordan and company during his second private workout yesterday. Charlotte prefers Miller's fit alongside LaMelo Ball over Scoot Henderson. I thought the winds were changing the other way these last couple of days. I was like, okay, they're going with Scoot, and maybe they still are, but this kind of a report makes me feel like, oh man, they're really going to do this. Which my first thought with this is like, this is what Portland needs. Like Portland needs this to happen for this third pick to really maximize its value.
Yes, to a degree. I do think that Miller has. I mean, it depends when you trade that pick. So if it's on draft night before the pick to happen, then it's probably whatever. But yeah, Scoot I think has more shooters than Brandon. There is a difference, as I said before. For the Hornets, I mean, I don't support this. Like it's. I mean, either you have.
Do you like Brandon Miller? Like, if you had your own personal big board, would he be very high on it?
I can't cope with off court stuff. Like to me, it's not that I value them or not value them. I just don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
On court, like for a team like OKC, it would be a dream. Like he would be so much fun, like hosting 9 threes per game, like just being this smooth 6'9" guy who can do a lot of things with the ball. And I can see the fit with LaMelo for sure. But like LaMelo is a guy that can really benefit for having other guys creating easy shots for him as well. Like it's not something where the fit is not seamless with a guy like Scoot. Like LaMelo is a good shooter. Like he's a guy that can space the court. They have PJ, who's a guy that can space the court. I think you can easily building a roster of shooters alongside Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball, and you have a great team. So the fit to me there, it's like, come on, you're not talking about a non-shooting point guard that you have, and you can see a questionable fit with Scoot. You already have a team that can shoot the basketball. Like, just get the guy who's better. Like, to me, it's.
The thing that's weird to me about this is I think it might have been on the Woj pod. He had Jonathan Gavoni on, I feel like, and they were talking about how Charlotte, like we don't really think of them this way, but they, similar to OKC, kind of like shut things down around the draft and not a lot of comes out of there.
Yeah.
So the fact that Woj is like this certain does kind of make me like wonder what's going on here. Like, why would they put this out? On the other hand, like I don't really know what the incentive for them would be to do a smoke screen on Portland and then to draft Scoot. I mean, just to mess with them, I guess. I mean,
well,
kind of
Portland can benefit from that. So that may be part of, hey, Woj, you need to do it to put it out there. You will be the first who hears where the number 2 pick goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in this. If it feels, it's starting to feel a little bit like the Jabari thing last year, where it's just like so certain. And like all the odds just flipped after Woj did this. And now Brandon Miller's the heavy favorite. And I'm just interested to see if that changes at all over these next couple days.
We're really close to draft right now. So it's,
Okay, next. Also from Evan Sitter. I just thought this was interesting. I hadn't heard this yet. This is from Gambo, John Gambadoro, who's a big talk show guy in Phoenix.
Oh, he's the guy.
He's the guy.
Yeah.
And look at that. Top photo is Lake Como, Italy.
Well, nice.
Huh?
Nice.
Pretty cool. The Suns are not finding proper value for DeAndre Ayton and are leaning towards keeping him next season. I think there's a really good chance DeAndre Ayton ends up staying with the Phoenix Suns. I just think that's interesting because, part of why I didn't want to overreact to the Beal trade was I always had this assumption, like, even if they don't get a huge haul for DeAndre Ayton, they can probably trade him for some rotation players. Yeah. And if they brought in 2 or 3 rotation players, I mean, talking like amazing guys, but just better than what they had last year, which is a pretty low bar to clear in some respects, I would feel a lot better about the Beal trade. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, at least for right now. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what Phoenix thinks about like being a proper value. I mean, I think I can see an easy path to get three guys from Atlanta, for example. That can be a place where you can get like depth pieces for Ayton. But if they feel that John Collins and whatever, the corpse of Capella and whatnot, it's not proper value, that I can see that being actually something that I would question myself. So it's not easy. At some point, though, you can't surely wait until midway through the season. For the Suns, it will not be important where they are in terms of playoff positioning. And with those 3 guys and Ayton and just 5 rando that you pick up, you're probably good enough in the West to be in playoff contention by the trade deadline. And if
you are, but does Ayton's value, could it go down further? Because now he's definitely the 4th option.
Yeah, that is a question, but I don't see the usage going down a ton, especially because you don't have anybody who can play for the bench. So I can see that being not a thing that depresses his value. Like, he'll get 35 minutes a night and he'll produce decently.
Did you see the thing about some Suns fans were talking about this, that there's this idea that the Suns ownership has decided they're going to bust through the second apron and they don't care and they're just going to go through it. And as part of that, they're going to sign their own guys to, like, for them, crazy deals just so that they have contracts that they can move going forward. Which I'm just setting this up. This could mean Darius Bazley somehow just ends up getting a really nice contract this summer. Well, because they just want to have a contract on the books that they can trade going forward.
That would be nice for Darius. Yeah. He can be a bench piece at 3.5 million. It's not necessarily the bench piece we want, but hey.
I mean, listen, I've never been a huge Baze fan, but there were definitely times last year I was watching the Suns team, like, why not try Baze at this point?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we saw him have nice defensive moments, and especially on a team like this, like, he doesn't have to do a lot offensively.
Yeah.
And if he can just tap into his defensive side, like, why not? Okay, we're going to skip these next 2. You're a big Jarris Walker fan, right?
I would not qualify myself as a big. I would not use too many assets to trade up.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to bring up that Evan Sittery talked to Jarris Walker, and he's only worked out for the Rockets, Pistons, Magic, Pacers, Wizards, Jazz.
Yeah.
So something interesting. Okay. Michele has to go in a few minutes, and before he does, I wanted to bring this up. So Zach Milner, who's a draft guy on Twitter, he puts together this Excel file every year, and it is the 3-point attempts and percentages for NBA threes. So the above the break threes, he goes through somehow and counts them. They have to be longer than 24 feet. And then he also has another thing for corner threes and then the total attempted. And it's really interesting. And so this is like all the years that he's done it. He combines everything. One guy I just wanted to quickly pull out. I don't know how much you looked through this, but one guy I wanted to mention real quick was Trey Mann, because Trey Mann at Florida, 44% on NBA above the break threes, and then 40% from corner threes. Now, a lot of these guys are on super low volume. Okay.
Yeah, which for Trey Mann that is the case. But yeah.
Yes. But what I did for all years and then also this year is I was just sorting by like most attempts, just to see like who attempted a bunch, and to give you an idea that like this isn't necessarily predictive of how things are going to turn out. Anthony Edwards at Georgia took 110 above the break NBA threes and shot 25% on those shots.
Yeah,
he's obviously turned into a nice player, so you can't freak out about these too much. But I did think it was interesting. You know, like Brandon Miller, Alabama, took 100 above the break NBA threes this year, shot 35%, shot 29%.
That's not bad.
Like, what?
It's not bad. Volume.
It's not bad, but don't you also feel like he needs to be like an elite shooter? Isn't that part of the sell on him?
Can you quickly pull Jabari Smith?
Okay. Yes, I will. I have to. I'm gonna have to sort here. So Jabari didn't take as many as you would think, because I thought he took like a ton. Yeah, and compared to Brandon Miller, he did not. So Jabari Smith took only 34 NBA above the break threes. Again, Brandon Miller took 100.
Yeah, that to me is the number that interests me the most.
The attempt.
Like, yes. In this setting,
32% on those.
Yeah. If you have a guy like Brandon Miller who's able to hoist 100 threes from that range, first of all, you this is something that I don't think it's in this file, but you should really try to separate which one are off the dribble and which one are spot up opportunities, because in college it happens that when you take those threes far away from the 3-point line, it's actually when you're like creating a shot from there. For Trey Mann, it's actually the case. For Brandon, it can be both. He used to space the court even as a guy that like stations way far from the 3-point line, just to give his teammates a little bit more space. But there are a decent amount of opportunity off the dribble, and if this is the combined result that you get, that is a great number. Like if you can have a guy that is shooting at a low 30 pull up in college from three, plus maybe an above 35, like 37, 38 in spot up opportunities, which I think from the top of my head, that it is what Brandon shot in college, maybe a little bit less from the dribble and a little bit higher in spot up opportunities. It's then again, the number of attempts is what interests me the most. I don't have many questions about his ability to shoot the basketball at a high level.
So let's go to just the 23 class, and I'm sorting by number of above the break NBA threes attempted. So there were a few names that stuck out to me. One of them was Julian Strother from Gonzaga, took 95 above the break threes and shot 41%. And these are NBA threes that he shot at Gonzaga, and then shot 42% on 19 corner threes. Overall, for all of his NBA range threes, he shot 41%, which is super impressive.
Yeah, it's super high. I see Podziemski there as well with a great percentage. Hawkins, great percentage. I mean, I see a lot of guys that are extremely interesting as shooters. As everyone probably knows, I really like Jordan Hawkins. I really value shooting. I'm not as high on Podziemski because, it's not in OKC range, nor is Strother. But these are guys that I think for especially Strother probably because he's a kind of a versatile wing with a little bit less defensive concerns than a guy like Podziemski. I think that these are guys where these stats is actually very interesting. Like if I have a pick between 25 and 35, I would actually think, hey, let's see if Strother can be just a 3AD with potential. And if that is the case, he can be a Desmond Bain kind of guy. Because the shooting is real. for him. Again, the volume is also important. Like, this is a guy that took 95 deep threes in college in 32 games. It's not a negligible number of attempts.
Yeah, I did want to point out real quick, Antoine Davis. I don't even know if he's being drafted or not. He's from Detroit.
I have no idea.
He took 164 NBA above the break threes and shot 37.8% on them. Shot 52.5% on 59 corner three attempts.
Yeah.
That was just like the most insane number that I saw.
I guess Grady Dick doesn't have many attempts. Oh, he's there.
Yeah. So let's find Grady Dick.
He's there. Yeah.
There he is. So he took 43 above the break NBA threes, shot 48.8%.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointingly, only shot 28% on 64 corner threes. But yeah, that 48% on 43 NBA range threes is also very impressive.
Like, a lot of them are transition threes, which just stops and pops. This is the go-to shot of Grady Dick. Another guy where I don't have any question about the shooting going forward, nor I have from the two guys like Kobe Buffkin and Jalen Hood-Schifino. They are both shooters. I just can't cope with the fact that Jalen Hood-Schifino is really someone that I don't trust making the decision with the basketball, whereas our guy Kobe, it's a different story. I mean, you have a guy that's shooting 70% from the layup line, basically, at the basket, and on top, he's a very good shooter with deep range. He didn't took a ton, but I really trust Kobe Buffkin.
I thought this was interesting. Taylor Hendricks only took 31 above the break NBA threes and only shot 26% on those.
Yeah,
he did. Obviously, we're getting now into like the lower attempts.
Yeah.
Another one that stuck out to me, Cam Whitmore, shooting 18.5% on 27 above the break NBA range threes.
Yeah.
Anthony Black shot better on above the break NBA range threes than Taylor Hendricks. He shot 30% on 23 attempts versus 25% on 31 attempts for Hendricks.
Yeah.
And Anthony Black shot 39% on 23 corner three attempts.
Look, I want to put this out there so that when he's an amazing 3-point shooter, people can actually come back at me and bite.
Yeah,
I've watched every shot that Anthony Black took in college multiple times, and the thing that scares me is that when he makes it, it looks okay. When he misses, it looks very bad. Like we're talking about very bad air balls from the corners. I saw him taking in one game a shot that was just a cotton shot, just net, and then the next attempt, like unguarded, was like 4 feet away. Like, that may mean two things. One is that tweaking his shot mechanics, like they did with Lou Dort, can fix a lot of that. Or B, that, I mean, it's just not going to work. Because at some point,
the last name I highlighted here. Do you have any strong opinions on Bilal Coulibaly shooting 2 for 6 on NBA range threes?
It's a great percentage. Okay, I would buy that.
And Rayon Rupert 2 for 5. That's 40%. Also very good.
I think for some reason I think that Rayon doesn't have a bad shooting motion. I actually think it's not bad. It doesn't need to be reworked.
Okay. Before you leave, Michele, do you have any predictions for draft night? Because it's probably the last time you're going to record a pod before the draft.
I fully expect OKC not to draft my top 3 guys in the draft, which are in that range: Kobe Buffkin, Grady Dick, and Jordan Hawkins, probably in this order.
Okay.
I expect there will be trades. I would put the over-under at lottery trades at probably 2.5.
Okay.
And I don't think that OKC moves. And if I have to make a bet on who to draft, it's probably someone who lives closer to me than you.
So you're
which
saying so that's either Wembenyama,
yeah,
Bilal, or Rayon.
yeah, it would make sense to me. Drafting a wing is probably what I would see them doing, and I don't see many other guys that like they can be lucky and have Asar Thompson there. That is something that I can see happening, especially if Buffkin goes high.
Okay, so I don't care about the top 4 picks. Who cares? Number 5, Anthony Black. He's going to go to the Utah Jazz. I totally buy into the idea that the Pistons are going to trade back with the Jazz for 9 and 16. They're moving up for Anthony Black.
Do you have to move up
for Anthony Black? I think so, because I think that the report was that they're trying to get ahead of the Wizards, who they think really want Anthony Black. I think instead of Anthony Black, the Wizards will take Kobe Buffkin at number 8.
Yeah.
You feeling good about that?
I actually start to buy into Sam Vecini's rumor of, Buffkin is not going past Washington.
Okay. I think Asar Thompson is going to fall to 9 to the Detroit Pistons, who have moved down in the scenario. And
so it probably means that Grade A Taylor Hendricks are there, available at 10 and 11, if this is the case.
Yeah, I think so. I have zero feel for what the Thunder are going to do. So I am just going to shot in the dark this. And I'm going to go back to Leonard Miller.
Oh, okay. Like not inviting to the green room.
Yeah.
It's really next level stuff for KC.
Yes.
But I don't see there's value there. Come on. Like it's if that happens, I think it can happen, but not at 12. Like, come on, Sam. You have to find value in like.
Well, no, they'll just put out a report that someone at 13 really liked him, and then we'll all be like, "Hey, they had to take him there." That's all you got to do. It's easy.
Yeah, but no, like, come on. They invited Jade up there.
That's true. I picked someone. Did you actually pick someone? You have to give me a name. Prediction.
A name. Can I?
I have to choose Bilal or Rayon because
but I don't want to do that. It's
you have to. It's your prediction. It doesn't mean that's the guy you want. It's just a prediction.
I know. It's I don't know. It's probably Bilal, but I don't.
Okay, that's all. That's all I asked for.
It's I know.
Michele, thank you so much for joining the Wednesday pod, recording on a Tuesday. It was lovely to have you, and we'll talk to you again after the draft, which is on Thursday, and we are having a draft party at Fassler Hall. Andrew or Down to Dunk tweeted out the glasses that will be there. Limited edition. They look very nice, I think, as far as glasses go. So get there early, get a glass, get some food, and enjoy the draft with some friends. Maybe we will get a trade up. That's all I really want. If we just get the Woj tweet, I don't even care if he knows who they're going to pick. If I just see that tweet, the Thunder are trading up, and I don't even care where it is. The Thunder are trading up to 11.
Would you be more excited about the Thunder trading up or the Thunder announcing on draft night that they are signing Vasilije Micic to a 4-year, $36 million?
Yeah, okay. They pass on their pick. The time runs out. They don't even have anything, but they have Adam Silver come out to announce the contract details for Micic on the stage. And
I would actually be okay in them signing Micic for $9 million per year, 4 years.
Oh yeah, I'd be very happy with it. All right, Michele, you've got to go. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you everyone for watching. We had over 125 viewers tonight. And we'll get this up on Spotify as quick as we can. All right. See y'all later. Enjoy the draft.